All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the return of Facebook Live on We Ain't Got No History, and the return of disappointment, frustration. What else? What else is there to term tonight's result, today's result? Frustration, I think, is the right word. Uh, Certainly after Chelsea took the lead. My name is David, and we'll be here for a little bit to talk about Chelsea's 2-1 loss at Old Trafford this afternoon. Willian once again scored to give us the lead, and everything looked pretty good for a while. And then out of nowhere, United equalized, and then the second half was inevitably a more disappointing effort from Chelsea and a better effort from United. And they eventually scored the winning goal. Of course, it was going to be Jesse Lingard. It seems to always be Jesse Lingard against Chelsea these days. Yeah, and then just to add insult to injury there at the end, Chelsea probably grabbed an equalizer, and then Morata got flagged for offside. At best, on replays, it looked level, and of course, the level always seems to go in for the advantage of the defense. So that was ruled out. Could have put a nicer ending for Chelsea and Morata himself. I don't know. I don't know if it was offside or not. It's if it's that close, even when you pause the replay and it's within a hair, how do you? That's assuming that you've stopped the replay at exactly when the ball left the passer's foot. That's why I always say the tie should always go to the attacker, but it almost always seems to go to the defender. So there you go. Yeah, that's not to say that Morata had a good game at all. He was back to his usual little weak play up front, getting pushed off the ball very easily, falling to the ground, not getting any calls. Of course, old Martin Atkinson was not giving any calls to anybody. Unless maybe if you're wearing a blue shirt and you happen to, breathe on somebody in a red shirt. But if you're wearing a red shirt, especially if your name was Nemanja Matic, you were not going to get a call today. You could do whatever you wanted. But, it's we could make all the excuses we want. The biggest problem was we didn't take advantage of very good play in the first half. Morata should have scored in the first couple minutes. Willian got us the goal, so that was nice. Hazard passed up a couple of chances to score for who knows why. When he's 1-on-1 with whoever McTominay is, he needs to take him on and needs to shoot himself or take the shot himself. When he's 1-on-1 with Lindelof or whoever it was inside the penalty area, even if he's facing with his back to the goal, he needs to turn and shoot instead of trying to set up Alonso. Stuff like that. It was little odd plays from Hazard in the first half like that. He did get the assist, which was really nice for Willian's goal, but it's the scoreline's bad. Obviously, because we lost. I don't think the performance was necessarily as bad as it feels. I think there's a lot of good things, especially in the first half. And that's despite Morata not having a good game. Hazard playing well below par. Drinkwater taking a long time to grow into the game. Alonso rather anonymous basically the whole time. And despite all that, I thought we actually played a pretty good first half, and got a little unlucky, inevitable in the second half. It's Mourinho and United don't make it look good, but they are second in the league, and that doesn't happen without having a good team or playing well, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Um, yeah, Conte says Hazard ran out of energy. That was pretty clear. Hazard wasn't the only one to run out of energy. I don't think. Willian quite clearly, his second half effort was not on par with the first, and that's unfortunately a side effect of a long season and many games. Obviously, United had the same amount of games, but they didn't play with the same tempo and the same effort in the first half as we did. Yet it was 1-1, so it got kind of worked out for them at halftime, and then they could turn it up in the second, and we ran out of energy in the second. So that's kind of how it goes. Give Giroud a chance, as Hamza, and that was possibly the only. That was the big surprise for me. Anyway, it was starting Morata. It was his first start in like 10 games. And it seemed like, Giroud was he's the informed striker, and he's the one that can actually dominate defenders, not Morata. And it didn't think, Morata might be better on a counter because he's got some quickness, but I don't think we necessarily expected United to dominate possession. So it's unfortunate. I mean, I understand why you choose your first choice striker, your by name first choice striker to play in this game. But I would have personally started Giroud, and I would have put him on a little earlier than 70, 77 minutes or whatever it was. But Conte's never really been one to make early drastic changes, so that's well within the standards of his patterns of substitution. I thought it was interesting. We did actually try something new. Conte's often accused of not trying new things, despite the major tactical shifts of last season. But we actually put on both Giroud and Morata at the same time. And it almost worked out. That offside goal that Morata got or should have scored, could have scored, did score, but was not counted. Obviously, the thing that everybody's latching on is Conte taking off Hazard. I don't know. I don't think necessarily this is such a controversial decision. Hazard hadn't done anything in this entire second half. He's not Messi. He's not Cristiano Ronaldo in that he needs to stay on. He almost never stays on the whole game anyway. It's just one of those things. That's the type of player that he is. And sure, you keep him on because there might be that one moment of magic that he provides. But it didn't really look like that was going to be coming anytime soon today. So, ideally, I think you would have taken off the entire front line and put on a new front line. But then, we don't have that many players in reserve. And then also, we definitely needed to get Drinkwater off and put Fabregas on to try to influence the game. So, yeah, it was one of those where whatever decision he makes, if he leaves Hazard on and takes off Willian to put on Pedro, he gets accused of just doing the same thing every time. If he takes off Hazard, then people say, oh my God, what are you doing? What are you thinking? It's the plight of a manager. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's always, whatever decision you make, somebody's going to be a critic. That's the beauty of it all. So yeah, as Ariel points out, the problem now is that there are only 10 games left, and we are outside the top 4, which is a little scary. And of course, the minimum expectation for the season is to finish top 4. But as it stands, we're 6 points behind second place, which is 3 more than we were at the start of the day. So that's not good. United second on 59 points. Liverpool 2 points behind on 57. Spurs 2 points behind on 55. And then Chelsea 2 points behind that on 53. So I mean, it's obviously still very close. The problem is Chelsea now go to City next weekend, and I think we can assume that that's going to be a loss because City beat everybody. Maybe they'll let up. They do have a couple games before then. Actually, they're playing right now against Arsenal in the League Cup final. They just took the lead, so good for them. And then they play Arsenal again this time in the league on Thursday. So maybe they'll take it easy. They'll be tired, but I doubt we'll be that lucky that we would get a free point there. At least we had confidence. Maybe not so much after today. I mean, he definitely started with confidence. The first half, first few minutes were amazing, excellent. Really should have scored there with Morata. They're trying to make it, trying to give him the credit, the benefit of the doubt, saying it was always a tough chance, whatever. But it was a rather Torresian finish there. So that is unfortunate. Could have used that early goal, but Williams scored anyway, and things were looking good. And then a few minutes later, United grabbed the equalizer. Maybe if you go by the letter of the law, but God forbid we go by the letter of the law, the game should have been stopped at that point because Christensen suffered a head injury, or at least got elbowed or headed in the head. There's a clash of heads, whatever. So he went down, but the referee was not interested in at all to stop the game. So Christensen got up, but by that time, everybody that was in disarray. Christensen was obviously out of it. He just kind of stood around and then made a token effort to stop a pass. But the whole structure was, the structure of the defense was, broken, blown. And United grabbed the goal, and it was basically the first time they've done anything the entire game. It was the 39th minute. So that's frustrating. I'm sure, Mourinho will be saying, everything's according to plan. It's exactly what I wanted. But, it worked out for him. He didn't waste any effort in the first half, that's for sure. And, yeah. Can we remove that picture of Mourinho in the top corner? No, we can't. We're going to have to look at him throughout this entire video. This is our life. He's won this round. This round goes to him, so there he is. Who wins a race between Alonso and a snail? Oh, that's a bit harsh. But once Alonso gets going, I'm sure he will win it. Christensen has been rock solid. Unfortunately, he has made 3 mistakes, which cost 3 goals. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna really count the first goal today as a Christensen mistake. I mean, unless you say it's his mistake that he got hit in the head. And like all players, when they get hit in the head, you go down because you got hit in the head. And as per the rules, anytime you suspect a head injury, the game should be stopped. I mean, Martin Atkinson was not going to stop the game for anything other than maybe a decapitation. That's unfortunate, and we paid the price. But I have a real hard time blaming Christensen for wanting the game, or thinking that the game is going to get stopped, or getting a bit knocked off his game by somebody's elbow, or getting a clash of heads or whatever it was. Don't quite remember exactly, but I have a real hard time pinning that first goal on Christensen. I pin it on Rudiger not being strong enough to stop the pass from Martial, and I'd pin it on somebody or anybody that should have been marking Lukaku instead of giving him a free shot. I don't know if that's Christensen or not, but he has a pretty decent excuse. If you're gonna blame anybody, I'd always blame the system. But That was poor refereeing, not for the first or the last time in the game. The second goal, sure, Christensen lost Lingard, or somebody should have been marking Lingard, and that's unfortunate. On the other hand, Christensen is 21, and mistakes happen. You can't expect to integrate youth and play perfect games at all times. There's nobody who plays perfect games, especially when you play in defense, and any mistake you make will tend to get magnified and result in something not so good. Oh, Conte out, please. Welcome, Chuck. Conte out. Yeah, well, who comes in? It's all well and good to say Conte out, and saying that his subs were terrible in hindsight. But I don't know, who comes in? Would you really like Louis van Gaal to be the interim manager for Chelsea the rest of the season? Is that really going to do us any good? Come on. Moses Alonso can cross for their best. I thought Moses had a really good game today, actually. And, maybe a couple bad decisions in trying to really play too much for the cross from the byline when a couple cutbacks could have been useful. But I thought Moses had a good game and continued his good form as of late. All right, we successfully talked Chemo down to 2 mistakes from Christensen over the last 2 games. Yep, it's unfortunate, but he's young, he's good, and he'll learn from it, and he'll become better. That doesn't mean he's never going to make a mistake again, because like we were saying, it's going to happen. It's just the nature of the beast. But unfortunate timing for those. Arif says Simeone. Is Simeone wanting out at Atletico? I thought he's committed his future again. I don't think he's going anywhere. Luis Enrique doesn't want to be an interim manager, so Luis Enrique is not an option at the moment, and neither is Simeone, obviously. I'm not saying Conte lasts beyond this season, because everybody says he isn't, so that's not really a question or really something that this game will even affect. It sounds like the story would be, if he wins the league, then he resigns, and if he doesn't win the league, then he gets sacked, or whatever. Champions League, trophy, it doesn't matter. I don't think, next season's coaching situation is definitely something that we'll be looking at later. We're just talking about interim stuff, interim management, interim coaching. If Conte gets sacked because he loses games that he's expected to lose, such as today, next weekend, and Barcelona, is that really something we should be doing? And B, who comes in? I think that's a pretty. We can't sack Conte and then just and go without a coach. I mean, we don't even have. I think we can assume that none of his assistants would stay on to be the interim, like when we sacked AVB or whoever else. We don't really have time to go searching for an interim. I mean, Hiddink, I guess, could be available, but he seems retired. Ancelotti doesn't want to be an interim manager. Zola, I mean, come on. Zola's already denied it. Van Gaal said this is all fake news. This is... don't think that's necessarily a good way to go there. There's a good comment from Joe that says, I'm saddened by all the anger of the Chelsea fans. Poor offside call. Agreed. A very fortunate first goal for United. Agreed. Christensen tried to react to the fact that Atkinson lost his whistle. He could have just laid there while the goal was scored. Wouldn't have changed anything. Besides that, we were, for the most part, competitive and played a reasonably decent game. I think overall, overall effort was decent. First half effort was really good. Second half effort, not so much. But had we been up 1 or 2 goals in the first half, I think it would have looked a lot different. At least the 1 goal. And yeah, Christensen, after he got hit, he actually goes down, which should be the cue, the prompt for the referee to blow his whistle and stop the game, because he's clearly holding his head, and that's what the rules say. But Atkinson, like for most of the game when United did anything, lost his whistle, as Joe says. So Christensen's options were you either stay down and hope that Atkinson eventually blows his whistle, or try to get up and at least be a traffic cone. Try to get back into the flow of the game, which he couldn't really do, and just being a traffic cone didn't quite work out for him or for us. So yeah, I think that was an unfortunate sequence of events and circumstances there for Christensen. And yeah, I was quite pleased with the first half effort, other than the unlucky goal. And maybe if you're concentrating on positives, that's definitely something to take from. The only problem is, this game itself really isn't the problem. I mean, losing at Old Trafford, it's happened before, and it will happen. It'll happen again. Chelsea haven't won at Old Trafford since 2013, and having already beaten United once this season, we haven't actually done a double over them since 2010. So it's been 8 years. This is not something that really should be expected. You winning, any team winning at Old Trafford. I mean, Chelsea have a decent record at Old Trafford, and we're more like the only team whom Ferguson didn't have a winning record against. But still, you should not be going into Old Trafford and expecting a win. We were competitive and we almost got it, and that's pretty good. The problem is we also lost to Bournemouth, and we lost to Watford, and we lost to Crystal Palace, West Ham, Burnley. Those are the concerning ones. Obviously, we can't do anything about them now, but the reason we're out of the top 4 is not because we lost at Old Trafford. It's because we lost points. It's 15 points lost to those teams, and that's tough to make up. You can't lose to the small teams like that and then expect to make that up at places like Old Trafford or next weekend at the Etihad or wherever else we go. That said, I don't think it's necessarily that bleak. I mean, it's okay. So 10 games left. We're 2 points behind Spurs in 4th. We do play Spurs at the Bridge, so just by the virtue of that one game, if we win that, obviously, then we're back in the top 4, and that's the minimum expectation for success, or not success, but the minimum set of expectations for the season to be considered not tragic. So it might feel tragic at the moment, and it's that's usually how it feels after you lose, especially when you lose in a frustrating fashion like today, when we've taken the lead. In fact, it was, what was it somebody was saying? It's the first time Chelsea have lost all season in the Premier League in a game in which we have taken the lead. So, yeah, poor timing to do that, to just start doing that. Got to stick with Conte till the end of the season, says Ken. Amen. Go on, end the season, and you never know what might happen. Is Chelsea heading towards Liverpool-like mid-table phase after a great decade and a half run? I'll have points for not making the Arsenal comparison, since everybody says we're now Arsenal. Well, yeah, I mean, in a way, we are, because we are not Manchester City or Manchester United anymore. I.e., we're not the biggest money draw in the game or in the league. So yeah, we have to kind of make do with a smarter, the smarter buys, the second tier, so to not quite top tier talent, or not quite players who are in their prime. We have to buy the players who are more like the Bakayokos, where they're not quite the finished product, and we hope to develop them into a finished product by helping them make that final step, or a Morata or whatever. That said, as long as there's going to be this much money in the game, you're always going to be trending towards parity. City winning the league this year means that there's now another new champion. And who was the last team to repeat? I think it was United, probably. And that's it's almost a decade ago now that anybody has managed to retain the title in England. So that's kind of how it goes. It's you can't really. If you're familiar with American sports, especially salary cap leagues like the NFL and stuff like that, there are no dynasties. It's in modern sports, it's really tough to do a dynasty, and that's exactly how the Premier League's trending as well. There are obviously six big teams, but any of those six at the start of the season could be reasonably talked up as somebody with a chance at a title. Maybe not Arsenal, but let's be generous. Certainly a top four candidate at least. And two of those teams at any given season will not be making the top four. And for those two teams, it's going to be a crisis. And if you're Chelsea, if you don't win, it's a crisis already. So, I don't know if we'll be mid-table, so to speak. Or obviously we're staying in the top six, the big six. But if you consider fifth or sixth place mid-table, then it's always a possibility. I don't think we're necessarily in danger of it just yet this season. This current stretch is going to make it look very bad because we're probably losing next weekend as well. Start making yourself comfortable with that feeling of losing again next weekend, I suppose. And then if we don't win, then it's going to be amazing. Expect the worst, and then be surprised pleasantly when when the worst doesn't happen. And so then after that, there will be 9 games, 2 of which are against other top 6 teams, Liverpool and Spurs, both at home. So that will be helpful. And Chelsea will have to definitely finish the season strong, and maybe dropping, losing to Barcelona in the Champions League, while disappointing, might not be necessarily the worst thing to happen as far as top 4 aspirations go. And I know that that's not really the winning mentality that you want to foster throughout a team, but it will be a silver lining of not advancing past Barcelona. That said, if we do beat Barcelona, that would be pretty amazing. Why didn't he start Giroud? That's a good question, and I have no idea, because I certainly would have started Giroud. Hazard looked off peak after an hour. Is he unfit? No, that's just Hazard, I think. When does Hazard ever play 90 minutes? I don't think he's ever really done that consistently in his career. But apparently this is a new thing, and everybody got very upset when Conte took off Hazard. But he hadn't done anything in the second half, and he was clearly out of energy. After says we will win the Champions League. All right, then we can finish 6th, and it won't matter, just like in 2012. Joe's back says, I would be interested in seeing how well Willian would be as a right wing back. His work ethic is most often fantastic. Skill level will make us more of a threat. He was there. Could also get another offensive weapon on the pitch to help another team. Yeah, I think Willian used to be suggested initially as a potential right wing back. My only concern would be is that he is very useful in transition through the middle of the pitch as well. And if we put him out on the right, that would limit his effectiveness in that sense. Also, I think we underrate the strength of Moses as a defender. Uh, Not saying Willian couldn't do it, because obviously I didn't. Moses kind of came out of nowhere for all this quality and ability on the right wing back. But certainly as maybe as a late game option we can try. I mean, Pedro. We played Pedro as a wing back in certain situations, and there's no reason to think that Willian couldn't be tried there as well. I don't know, maybe, but you'd want to put Willian kind of more to the middle and up front, especially when he's in great form like he is these days. 12th goal for him today of the season, which ties a career high. So good job, Willian. The next goal is a new career high for him, and hopefully we won't have to wait too long for it. Brandon doesn't think 3-4-3 is good at all with Morata. Well, I mean, in fairness, we did try to make the 3-5-2 work with him for a while. I don't quite remember now why we went away from it. Possibly because Morata stopped scoring. So we needed something other than 3-5-2. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think today's loss really has anything to do with the 3-4-3 not being effective. Morata himself should have scored in the first couple minutes. Willian did score. Hazard certainly had several chances where he should have taken a shot. I'm not even sure he ended up with a shot, and that's just not good enough. We've talked about this many times in the past, and Hazard himself has talked about this many times. He needs to shoot more often, and today he wasn't, and he insisted on not shooting today for who knows why, and he kept on, even when he had this McTominay character. I'm sure McTominay is big and large and everything that Mourinho likes in players, but he's still just some young kid, I mean, that's when you have him one-on-one. Doesn't matter if you're Hazard and you have any player one-on-one in the penalty area, you need to take him on. You can't just stand there and be all Willian with the ball and wait for support. You need to, this is your chance to step up, be the man, and he didn't, and that's disappointing. And after those plays, I can certainly understand why Conte took him off. And I know Conte is getting plenty of criticisms for that move because we ended up losing. But I can understand why that happened. Morata just falls down every time there's contact. Yeah, I think unfortunately Morata still hasn't learned that he's not going to get those calls in England, especially when Martin Atkinson is a referee. He's not going to call anything. Yeah, it's unfortunate there. Would have been interesting to think about what the season would have looked like with Costa. So just too much for Conte to focus on keeping him away from red cards. I don't think the red cards were an issue. I think it was definitely just a personal conflict between the two of them. And we've forgotten. I think and everybody's forgotten how much Costa had pushed for a move out of Chelsea for at least a season and a half before we eventually sold him. So these days, all the blame is on Conte for the text and for not treating him right and all that. But Costa's been pushing for a move for like 3 or 4 transfer windows. At some point, we even had to warn Atletico to stop talking about Costa all the time and stop talking to him or his agent or whatever. So this is not a good situation. And whatever happened between him and Conte obviously got to the point where it was not worth the effort and the time to resolve it. And I guess I don't know. We got decent money out of him, and when Morata was scoring goals, we certainly didn't miss all the sideshows from Costa. As we knew that one of the qualities that Diego had was his ability to single-handedly drag Chelsea into games and through games. And that certainly happened a couple of times last year. The West Brom win certainly comes to mind. And Morata is just not somebody who does that. So that was a concern there. But we figured we could make it work. And when, Azpilicueta to Morata was a thing, I think we weren't too concerned about such things as single-handedly dragging us through games. So, you think we're not going to make the top 4? Because I don't think so. It says Andre King Dre. No, I think we're okay. We'll be fine. We have 2 points off Spurs. Come on, it's Spurs. We can beat Spurs. Spurs and Liverpool. We play both of them in the last 10 games, both at the Bridge. So I think we can win both of those games. And if we win both of those games, all things being equal, we will be back in the top 4. No problem. As many like to say, you never know in football. So I can sit here and make predictions all day long. That won't make it any less true. But I'm not particularly concerned at the moment of being out of the top 4 because we lost at Old Trafford and probably will lose next weekend at the Etihad as well. It's going to look bad. It's going to look bad if we lose next weekend and all the other teams who have very winnable games win, because then we'll be 5 points off 4th. But, yeah, I think we can still... We can make it up. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. What's the worry? Yes, what's the worry? We should not give up on Morata. There's potential there. He just needs to find his mojo. Yeah, somebody stole his mojo, and who knows what how he can get it back. Last time he got his mojo back by getting a girlfriend and getting married, but now I think his wife might not like that too well. So yeah, time to look for a different solution. Why am I not treating Courtois and Hazard the same as Costa going back to Spain? Because Courtois and Hazard don't actually necessarily want to or are pushing for a move. Certainly Hazard isn't pushing for a move. If Hazard had ever pushed for a move to Real Madrid, he would be at Real Madrid by now. I mean, those rumors have been going on for like 6 years. At some point, if Hazard wanted to go to Real Madrid, he would have gone to Real Madrid by now. That's just how it works. Courtois is a slightly less obvious situation because his personal situation would make it more ideal for him to be in Madrid, since that's where his kids live and that's where the mother of his children live. But he's also still, recently was saying how he owes everything to Chelsea in terms of a professional career. And he's not married or anything, so it's. I don't think we can necessarily put those two into the same category. Costa was complaining about London like 6 months after he arrived, and a year after he was already talking about Atletico, and the Atletico chairman was literally talking about making a move for Costa and things like that. It's never gotten to that point with Courtois and Hazard, and I don't really expect it to. And I mean, I suppose the flip side of it is that Conte wasn't necessarily enamored with Costa because he was inconsistent in terms of his playing style, so Conte couldn't play necessarily the system he wanted to play. And it looked good with Morata for a while, but unfortunately he's fallen out of form, so now we're a little worse off. And the other thing is, basically We thought we could get rid of Costa and get a replacement in for him, which we did. Might not be the case as easily with Courtois or Hazard. I think Conte has wanted to work with Morata for a while. They both said that, or Lukaku, whichever. But we can list candidates to replace Courtois. I think Oblak comes up quite often from Atletico, but there's absolutely no guarantee that he would want to join, or we could get somebody comparable in terms of quality. And Hazard, Hazard at this point is on the verge of becoming a legend. So, there's maybe some of that romanticism, some of that still survives in the modern game. Dun, dun. Yeah, we definitely should have gone for Giroud in this game. And as Joe points out, Morata did score, but unfortunately it was disagreed by the refereeing crew. So it's tough. In cases like that, say you take the offside goal from Morata that was called offside, and even let's say it was very, very tight, very barely offside. If we wanna say that the referees got it right, we'd say that somebody had amazing eyesight and could deduce it to the millimeter precision that some body part of Morata was offside. We could set the replay however we want and prove either side, but say Morata scores that goal, does his level of play change? Not really. His performance would have been the same, but the perception suddenly improves 100 times because he scored a goal. Now we instead remember his big miss in the first half and the fact that he didn't score a goal again. So then that kind of affects the perception, all that. But it's in terms of a longer term outlook or whatever for the future, we kind of have to look beyond just that. And you have to look at the performance, and you have to look at the promise. And those are scant consolation when you lose a game, especially when you lose to Manchester United, especially when you drop out of the top four, especially when Manchester City are winning everything, including at halftime of the League Cup, 1-0. Apparently Arsenal have not really done much other than miss a couple of big chances by Aubameyang. His overall play is awful. Now, nobody tells him not to go down. Yeah, as it is a little baffling. I can only assume that we are telling him not to go down, but he still does. He thinks he's getting fouled. So, even it took Didier a couple years to kind of kick that habit too. So this you don't learn. Not everybody learns new tricks overnight, and maybe Morata needs a bit of extra time in that regard. He's to the territory now where he just kind of needs that goal to get confidence back. And once the confidence is back, it all kind of snowballs back into happy times, whatever. But hey, onwards and upwards. All right, so next up for Chelsea will be the super easy, minor task of going back to Manchester and playing Manchester City next Sunday. If we want to cling to some hope, it would be that we won there last season, 3-1, which was easily the turning point of that season. Maybe not the turning point, because the turning point was the Arsenal loss. But that win against City was basically the one that kind of confirmed that Chelsea are serious favorites for the title. I hope we send Kevin De Bruyne a fruit basket on the anniversary of his giant miss in that game every year, just to remind him, just to thank him for that title, because that could arguably the biggest miss of the season in terms of Chelsea's title win. So anyway, maybe we'll get a repeat of that next Sunday. If we want to look at a City, actually have to play another game between now and then, and a rematch against Arsenal in the Premier League. So maybe they'll be a little tired. They are also like 13 points ahead of United with a game less played. So Guardiola's teams tended to suffer, so to speak, in late seasons after wrapping up titles. So maybe we can hope for a free point or two, or well, you can't get 2 points, a free point or three, and make it look a little better for us in terms of top four prospects. Yeah, that's next for us. And then after that, after City, then we play against Palace at home, and then we go to Barcelona, and then we go to Leicester City for the FA Cup quarterfinals, and then we're on international break. So this is remain in the midst of the make or break season, part of the season. And right now, unfortunately, we're trending towards break, but not all hope is lost, I don't think. Even though it might feel like it today. It's tough to feel positive, too positive after a loss. What do I think of Michi? Is it that Conte doesn't know how to play him or what? I'm not sure it's actually a know-how, but it's just a desire. Like, Conte doesn't want to play that way. The system, Conte doesn't want to play a style of football that makes Batshuayi look good. And it's not necessarily, it's not passing judgment on that or anything. It's just, it is what it is. I think that's the long and short of it. I think Batshuayi is a tremendous finisher of the ball, of modern day poacher who can play with little forwards like Hazard and Willian, like they showed in the Brighton game. But he's not going to be a target man, a hold up player, and that's what Conte wants, for better or worse. So I think Batshuayi's future depends very much, perhaps more than any other player in the squad. It depends very much on Conte's future. If Conte goes, which he seems likely to do, or at least we're told, and by all the reports that he's likely to do, whoever we get in will determine what happens with Batshuayi. Yeah, I'd like to think that it works out for him, but I also would like Conte to stay. So if we can't do both of those, that's a pretty tough decision. I'm not really sure I'm ready to pass judgment on that. Interesting that Michi and Joe says, interesting that Michi's knock at Chelsea's his hold-up play, and Dortmund like him because his hold-up play is better than Aubameyang's. Yeah, but Aubameyang has like non-existent. That dude does not do hold-up play at all. And Batshuayi can do a little bit, just not in the classic target man style that like say Giroud can or does. So, no. And Batshuayi's improved his physique quite a bit since first arriving at Chelsea. So obviously he's taken some of that instruction to heart. But it's Chelsea indulged and agreed or conducted business in January to get Conte the backup striker he wanted. Unfortunately, he didn't play the backup striker that he wanted today when it could have been useful. But yeah, unfortunate. Yeah, no, it's would have been a bold call possibly to go with Giroud, if Morata is not hurt anymore. Play your 15 million backup veteran over your 60 million first choice big name, record signing striker. But oh well. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see who plays against City. Today we certainly should not have been expecting to play too much on the counter because United were unlikely to dominate possession. I don't know what the final figures here were for possession and stuff like that, but I don't suspect they were lopsided at all. Let's see what we have. In fact, it was Chelsea with 56% of the possession. So, and that's fairly expected, I think. So, in that sense, playing Giroud would have been the right choice next weekend against City, when we certainly won't have the majority of the possession. We can't really play Giroud because he's not really that useful on the counter beyond just being an outlet. And while there is some use in that, it's helpful if your center forward can also move a little bit. So do we play Morata again? Do we play three smalls? Do we try the Barcelona game plan? Could work, I suppose. But, yeah. Expect more drama, I suppose. You think there's a chance for top four? Yeah, I think there's still a chance for top four. We'll be fine. You gotta stay confident. If we lose to Spurs whenever we play them, then it's definitely over. And I mean, like I was saying, there's a decent chance we'll be 5 points behind fourth place after next weekend. So we got to prepare ourselves mentally for that, and then go turn it around and kick some ass in the last 9 games of the season. So I think on that note, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. It's time for second half of the League Cup, so go watch that. Take our minds off today's result against Manchester United, 2-1 win for Mourinho's new team against Mourinho's old team. Willian gave us the lead and everything looked fine, and then United got a kind of a lucky equalizer against a run of play, and then Chelsea faded in the second half. United grew into it, and their inevitable winner from hometown kid Jesse Lingard gets them the victory. So Chelsea are out of the top 4 as we speak because Spurs grabbed a late winner against Crystal Palace, and Liverpool had no trouble whatsoever with West Ham United. So we're 2 points behind Spurs, and who are in 4th. We're 4 points behind Liverpool, who are in 3rd, and we're 6 points behind United, who are in 2nd. So it's got the top 4 got a little bit more stretched out today. These four teams were separated by only 4 points coming into the weekend. Now they're separated by 6 points, and Chelsea are unfortunately at the extreme bottom end of it. But season's not over, so gotta keep on fighting. Yeah, gotta read this. There's been some of the confidence returned after a couple wins, and then the good draw with the good performance against Barcelona on Tuesday. Now we're gonna have to dig deep and recover it again. Yeah. So next up is City on Sunday, a week from now, and it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough, no doubt about that. I'm not so sure there's going to be Facebook Live afterwards because that weekend I am personally leaving on a 3-week road trip of the good old US of A from West Coast to East Coast and back. So I'm not so sure there's going to be time to do any sort of videos or anything like that. But maybe there will be some quick updates from the road. Who knows? Or somebody else will do this. But if you watched, thank you for watching. Thanks for all the comments. Some good comments today. Thank you. Please go visit the website, weain'tgotnohistory.com. And yeah, there'll be better days. A loss today, but we shall persevere. Yeah. Thanks for watching, and have a decent-ish weekend despite this result. Get over it. We'll try to get over it.